I am continuing the story of the Shlichus to Greenland 60 years ago, and we come to Erev Shabbos Vov Tishrei, and I will share with you a lot of the details that I witnessed about the Histalkus of the Rebbetzin and the Rebbe's actions before and after, some of which I heard b'shaitoi, and some I witnessed with my own eyes, and I'll say the things which I saw myself, I will tell you. It will be woven in, unfortunately, into the story because that's how it fits chronologically. On Erev Shabbos, I was phoned up by the editor of the New York Post. The information we got on Friday afternoon is that you need to get permission from the Pentagon. Otherwise, you cannot get onto the plane. It was a military plane. And nobody, even the biggest people, can't. And the big man that we had was David Sarnoff, and he said that the name of Lubavitch is the thing which will get it, because use all your influence. And Shmuel Shraga worked on it, and I mentioned all these things before. On Shabbos morning, the phone was ringing off the hook in my house. Obviously, I didn't take it. I knew it must have something to do with this, but I didn't know from who and from where. And I got to 770 and I met Rabbi Yudel Krinsky, and he told me the phone in his house is ringing constantly, nonstop, literally. The phone in the Americas, we were outside 770, was ringing at that time. And if I remember correctly, Rabbi Chadakov said the phone in his house was ringing. He didn't answer. There was davening. Meanwhile, the Rebbetzin Chana, this is what I heard b'shaitoi, she had a stroke, it seems, and she fell out of the bed, I think. It was about 5 o'clock in the morning, and the carer didn't know what to do. They came to 770, and there was a bacha who was there like all night, labeled Brandel, an institution in 770, a big genius. And he went to 1304 presidency, if I remember. This is what Pipi Shmuel B'Shait, and rang the bell and informed what happened. And then Rabbi Dr. Zellickson became involved, and he reported to the Rebbe before Shachris, I believe. And during the Farbrengen, I remember he went over to the Rebbe and asked what her mother's name was. He asked for a bracha for the Rebbe Chana, Bas Rachel, and the Rebbe smiled. And the first sikha was about Vayelech Lebeis. Where did Moshe go? He went to the Beis Ulfana to learn. It's a whole beautiful. I just remember clearly that sikha. Now I think it was in the middle of that sikha. It would be about 2:00, 2:15. One of the kids outside, the kids, 8, 9, 10-year-old kids, would be playing outside 770. And maybe pop in here and there to the Farbrengen. Somebody came in, and the Rebbe is talking. The kid came over and he said, "Is Shmuel here?" He didn't know where it was, and somebody pointed me out. I was standing near the back. In those days, I was able to hear much better than today. Anyway, so he said, "There's a police car here, and they want to see you urgently." So I said, "Tell them that it's not respectful to walk out while the rabbi is talking. I'll come out in about 10 minutes. They should wait." And when they never finished the sikha, I went out, and the car had left. But they said to the kid, when I do come out, they should say I should wait there until they come back in about 20 minutes. And they came back 5-10 minutes later. And the policeman said, "I have an urgent message from the Pentagon, Colonel Ox. That's his name. He has to speak to you urgently." So I said, I'm not allowed to use the phone on the Sabbath, officer. So he says, "All right, and just write down the number and call them when the Sabbath ends." So I said, "Officer, I'm not allowed to write on the Sabbath." So he gave me a paper from the car. The car was at the curb. He said, here's the number, and you could take it. Here, I wrote it. I written it out. I said, officer, I'm not allowed to carry the paper into the building on the Sabbath. So he was he said, this is the Pentagon. You know what it means? They're running after us. What should I do? So I said, look, I got a good memory. I'll memorize the number, and I'll call him this evening. But Poyo, by the way, I'm just digressing what happened at that moment. In the evening, I was in the hospital by the Rebbetzin, Chana, and at some stage the Rebbetzin Chayamushka came, and that's where I got the quarter in order to make the phone call to the Pentagon, which was closed already by the time I called. Anyway, that's my Mahamushka. So in that Farbrengen, the Rebbe spoke about Nochi Hasta Aster. He gave a very, very big cry. People were wondering whether it was connected to anything happening 1418. A very big cry in the middle of one of the Sichos. The Rebbe spoke about the Golos of Tzofen, and at some stage he said, there is a person, or a Shliach, maybe he said a mensch, was fought in a Medina Rechoike in Tzofenzeit. That was me. A person's going, and I went up to the Rebbe, and I had not stelled mashke, and at that stage, this was the clarification to me that it's going to happen. Till then we didn't know. Although in the morning, when I came to 770, we spoke about the phone calls. Rabbi Krinsky told me, I'm working for the Rebbe for 15 years. This was Tavshin Chafei. 15 years into the Nesias. And every time we've had like a big block, a very great difficulty, like this thing has been, very big Yuluyim came out of it, so you should know big Yuluyim are going to come. And so the assumption was I'm going to go, but we didn't know how and when. But the Rebbe called me up, gave me a bottle of mashke, and the Rebbe told me to do 5 things with that bottle, and all the years, the last 60 years, I've been thinking that it was Yom Kippur, it's connected to the number 5. A bissel sollst du voneinander teilen da, a bissel sollst du voneinander teilen dorten. A bissel sollst du nutzen, euch zu verfasten sich, und a bissel sollst du nutzen, euch zu abfasten sich. Und a bissel sollst du bringen zurück da. A bit of it distribute here, a bit distribute there, a bit used to begin your fast. So the last thing I ate in Greenland before the fast was the Rebbe's mashke, and a bit you should use to break your fast, and a bit you should bring back here, which was the next Shabbos, and the Rebbe didn't receive it. It was the Shiva then. It was your Gimel Tishrei. It was Farbrengen, and after the first Sicha, I offered it, and the Rebbe didn't say no. He just said these words: "Stellen Simchas Torah." Bring it on Simchas Torah, which I did. And now, that day, after the Farbrengen, the Rebbe walked out from 770 much quicker. The Rebbe always walked very quick. And the Rebbe walked quicker than usual, and he went to the right instead of to the left. To the left, he would be going to Brooklyn Avenue and go home to President Street. Here he went right to Kingston Avenue to go to his mother. And we didn't know. My wife was in England with our son, and I ate by Chaim Yaffe from Sheffield, England, the Suda Shabbos down Eastern Parkway, and I was with Rosh Island Gold. We came back an hour later, let's say, going towards 770, so it must be about 6, 7 o'clock in the evening. And suddenly we saw a Litvish-style guy. In those days, there were thousands of Frum Yidden in Crown Heights, not Lubavitch. Lubavitch was a group, a major group, but it wasn't by any means the majority. So this was a Stamid, and he's screaming, I saw something I'll never see in my life. I saw Lubavitch Rebbe getting into a car on Shabbos. So I went over to him. I said, "Were you crazy?" He said the Rebbe went into an ambulance. So what happened was, the ambulance came. They wouldn't go without cash. They had to pay them, I think it was $200, which was a hoin toyafos in those days. And they couldn't take the Rebbe's mother. And Michal Raskin, Olav Shalom, of the fruit store, he had a major, like it was Orchim, it was Tishrei. He got into his store somehow, and he pulled out of the cash register. They had to give cash, dafka. There wasn't this credit cards and things in those days. And the Rebbe said that, this is all in Pia Shmuel, by all these stories, that Leah Khan, Rebbetzin Leah Khan Shlita, should go with, because she was very close, probably because she was very close friends with the Rebbetzin. And they went to the hospital. Now, Usher and I heard that they went to the hospital, and I don't remember how we found out which hospital. The hospital was like in Bedford-Stuyvesant, maybe a mile from 770, to cross the street from a shul. As we arrived there, Rabbi Label Groner was just walking out of the hospital, and he says, La'acha ha'maisa. Those are the words he said. So we walked up to the 9th floor, where the Rebbe was. Now, what I heard, this is, again, not what we saw, is that they were being metapel, they were treating the Rebbetzin and trying to save her life, the doctors, and everybody had to go out. You're not allowed to be there, including the Rebbe went out. And then the doctor saw that she has already passed away. And they didn't know how to break. The doctor came out of that room, and said the words, "There's nothing more we can do for her." And the Rebbe, mind, didn't accept it. He suggested a number of treatments for a stroke. Did you try this? Did you try that? And I heard that the doctor was nispol, that the Rebbe knew about these avant-garde procedures that were really not known by most specialist doctors even yet. And so he said to the Rebbe, it's too late. When they made it clear that, that it happened. But the Rebbe said the words, Geterein and Zoktilim. I think I heard this from Rabbi Meir Halak, Olav Shalom. And there were just a handful of people there at that time, and they were saying Tilim. And meanwhile, the Rebbe had a shaila, does he have to eat through the Shabbos? I'm not sure if it was a shaila about Kiddush as well. He didn't make Kiddush at the Fabrengen. And he said, does he have to eat through the Shabbos? Al Pi Din, it's in Muchuyev. So at the hospital, 2 older Chassidim were there with the Rebbe, which was Reb Mendel Futterfass and Reb Osher Sasonka, Reb Osher Batuma, they called him. And Reb Osher Batuma heard, the Rebbe said, am I Muchuyev to eat? He said, yeah. So the Rebbe said, is Aita Rav? Are you a rabbi? And he said, no. So the Rebbe told Rabbi Groner to go and ask a Rav. Across the street from the hospital, straight across the street, was a shul, a big shul. And he went there to the rabbi, and the rabbi said, yes, he has to eat. And Rabbi Groner walked up 9 flights and told the Rebbe, the Rav says you have to eat. So the Rebbe says, the Alter Rebbe haltoichet azoi. Does the Alter Rebbe also say that? So they realized the Rebbe does not want to eat. And they were saying Tilim. Now come back to the time that we got in there. This was probably shortly after then. The room, there were people in the room. The room was not a very large room. The bed was perpendicular to the entrance that we came in. And the Rebbetzin was covered, and the Rebbe was on the other side of the bed, and there was a window. He was looking out the window. He was in his coat, and he turned around while we were saying Tilim, and probably he was, and his face looked like a lion, like a red, also very, very fiery. He took in the situation, and then looked back at the window, and then by that time, little by little, more and more people were coming, and this little room suddenly became packed, and it was like jostling and things. And the Rebbe said, "Sinishkin Fabrenyu, was stuck man sich? Not a Fabrenyu. What's everybody pushing here?" And at some stage, a minute or two later, the Rebbe said, "Who's the Hanhola?" And Rabbi Yisrael Jacobson, sent everybody, and the whole Vada Masada sent everybody out of the hospital altogether. Not just out of the room. Everyone, no one can stay in the hospital. Just a few people were there. I was out of the room, but I didn't leave the hospital because I had to daven Ma'ariv. I had to see Rabbi Krinsky. I had to. I was working really with the Americans at that time. Through Chav Dalet and Chav Hey. Later on, I learned in the Koilo that whole year. That was Koilo started. So I stayed outside in the lobby outside the room, and the Rebbe waited until the Chaver Kadisha came, as the din is, till you hand over. And at that stage, Rabbi Krinsky came out of the room. And he told me that Rabbi Chadakov told him. So people say, it's a known thing, the people say that the Rebbe said it, very possible, but I don't know that, if it's even probable. But Rabbi Chadakov told Rabbi Krinsky, the words that he told me is, Zok Shmuel Atzfaem is Nishtoken Levaya. That he should tell me that as far as I'm concerned, I should not think of staying for the funeral. I have a Shlichus and I better get going and do it. And, so at some stage, when the Chaver Kadisha arrived, the Rebbe gave out instructions that he's going to daven Ma'ariv, and he wants only a minyan mitzumtzum. And that minyan was actually 10 plus the Rebbe. Minyan mitzumtzum plus the Rebbe. It was in a visiting room in the hospital. And you walked into the room and it would just about fit those 11 people. And we davened Ma'ariv. I was the daven Fanomed. I used to try to daven Fanomed this was the last tefillah, obviously, because then the Rebbe was davening Fanomed. I was saying Kaddish for my late mother, Leah Shalom. And when we went into the room, the Rebbe opened up the window and looked up at the sky. He was going to check where's Mizrach from the sky, from the stars or from the moon, I don't know from what. But it was a cloudy night. So he closed the window and told Rabbi Krinsky, Freg in Spital, wo is east? Asked the hospital which direction is east. And in that minyan was obviously the Maskidim, I guess Rabbi Beryl Unick, Rabbi Meir Harlick, myself, and we davened Bahat. And the minig was, when anybody was saying Kaddish, any day that the Rebbe was saying Kaddish, like for your side, Chav Gimel Elul or Rosh Hashanah, any time that the Rebbe was saying Kaddish, not when he was davening for an Omid, when the Rebbe was part of the minyan and said Kaddish, nobody else said Kaddish. The Rebbe himself said the Kaddish alone. When he finished Oyser Shalom, then everyone said together. Now, so the Rebbe said, after Aleinu, I finished, and the Rebbe said Kaddish, and he looked to me and waited for me to say Kaddish, which I did. And the second I finished Oyser Shalom, the Rebbe quickly turned and walked out of the room and did not wait for the Mishnayos. I had to go downstairs at the outside the hospital. There was hundreds of people there, and I said the last Mishnah and the Kaddish D'Rabbanan. Now, I went back to 770 that night, and to find out, and there were about 4 or 5 telegrams, including a telegram from Senator Javits, Senator Keating. Those were the 2 New York State senators, saying things are being arranged or something. They really, and one was from the president's office, but the big one was from the Secretary of the Air Force. That telegram was the Yipoy Koyach. It says this telegram is your official document that you are requested. It was all with big covered. Rabbi Chavakov had said that Americans will pay for all travel, food, and accommodation. Lahavdil, this telegram said all transport, housing, and mess is food, is on the USAF, and it's called a TDY, a temporary duty, found out later on. It was a telegram of about 3 pages. It must have been a couple of hundred words. At least it's saying I have to report to McGuire Air Force Base tomorrow on Sunday, and all requirements. You have clearance. The only thing I need is a medical examination, which I would get at the base, and so then I knew now I'm going, and that night in 1418 President, at some stage, the Rebbe came to the house. This is Mipia Shmuel, that the Rebbe said, you have to make sure that nobody fidgets around here, nobody touches anything that belongs to her. And Rabbi Meir Halak said that Beryl Yunik else. That Beryl Yunik took everything out, so the Rebbe told him, you're aware of what he took out, and I'm aware of things that he didn't take out. And I don't know who it was that took the achrayas. The Rebbe wanted someone to say he takes achrayas, they know he's going to touch, because everyone was saying Tillim there. And I think that Rabbi Jacobson took the achrayas, but I'm not sure of that. At some stage, it was packed in that house just to say Tillim. And at some stage, in that apartment, and at some stage I went myself as well, and I spoke with my teacher and my Yedid, Rabbi Yaakov Shvei, asking him, some advice. What to do? I'm going to be the only Rav thousands of miles around, and I'll continue this This is about the Vav Tishrei side of it, what happened, and I'll also say that the next morning I davened early, a minyan for myself, and then the Rebbe came into a minyan, which I was upstairs at, and he said 5 kadeshin with bechiyos noirois, very, very strong weeping. They said the kaddish after Sheshel Yoim, after Enkel Lekenu, after Oleinu, after Tillim, and this time he did say after Mishnayos as well. And then I was given instructions that there's no Levaya. I went out and there were taxis. Taxis never come to 770, but there were taxis arriving the whole time, people coming to be at the Levaya, coming from the airport probably. I took one of those taxis. I had to go to Port Authority, and from there I took a bus to McGuire Air Force Base, and I felt tzibrochen. Tzibrochen that the Rebbe is sitting shiva. And that I couldn't think of Menachem Ovel, and I sent a telegram to the Rebbe of Nichum Avelim, and I got a letter for that on Chalamoyed Sukkos, and I think I mentioned that the Rebbe said to take 200 paper slippers from the mikveh, to get it from the mikveh lady. Now, during the shiva, the whole shiva was 2 days, from Sunday afternoon to Tuesday afternoon, which was Erev Yom Kippur. During that time, many, many dozens of Rabbonim and Choshev Yidden, besides Anash Vatmimim, came to Menachem Ovel the Rebbe. But the Rebbe found time during those 2 days. Rabbi Krinsky told me that the Rebbe told him, phone up the planetarium to find out what time the sun sets in Greenland. And that's one thing that Rebbe told him. And the second thing is that Rabbi Krinsky made a LNS, a Lubavitch news service, to send out to all Jewish newspapers, Anglo Jewish newspapers in the world. And the Rebbe used to be Magia them. And here, even during the Shiva, the Rebbe was Magiyat, and the Rebbe added that he should write there about the non-leather shoes, that a supply of non-leather shoes. Rabbi Lou took with him a supply of non-leather shoes, and I will continue this whole story, maybe before Yom Kippur still, about what happened on the trip there and there in Greenland itself. Two little clarifications on the voice note of yesterday about, it was the story of Greenland, but this was specifically about what happened Vav Tishrei Tavshin Chavhei 60 years ago exactly. And I said that some stories are Mipi Hashmua, what I heard from others, and some I saw. So one that I said from Mipi Hashmua was that, I heard it from many people, that there was this crowd in 1418 President at night saying Tillim, and the holy guf of the Rebbe Chana was there, and the Rebbe was there for part of the time, and he said he wants somebody to take responsibility for her property, and different objects in the house shouldn't be tampered with or looked at, and chas v'shalom taken. And Rabbi Meir Halak said that it's been removed by Baal Yunik, and the Rebbe said, I know of others, things that were not. And the question was, who is the person that took responsibility? Ha'irani Chochem Echad, Rabbi David Dubov, of the great expounders of the Torah of Rabbi Levi Yitzchak, told me that he heard that the person who undertook it was Rabbi Zalman Duchman. And the Rebbe accepted it, and on the way out, he saw Rabbi Zalman's son, Yisrael Duchman, and he said, you help your father. And the suggestion was that the Rebbe knew that Yisrael Duchman would be more with it to be able to protect it properly. The second clarification is that I told a story which I saw with my own eyes when the Rebbe at the hospital earlier, when the Kadisha arrived, the Rebbe said he wants a minyan for Ma'ariv, a minyan mitzumtzum. There were 10 people. I don't recall for sure whether it was 10 with the Rebbe or without. I did count them at the time. And the Rebbe walked in, a small room, and opposite the door was a window. And the Rebbe opened up the window and looked at the sky. It was in order to see where east is probably, but it was cloudy. So the Rebbe turned to Rabbi Krinsky and said, "Verleg ich bin tov, who is east?" And I was always bowled over that how someone could look at the sun and at the moon and the stars and know which direction it is. I guess so. There's a story of Rabbi Simcha Gorodetsky was sent as a shadar on behalf of Tomchet Mimim to Dnipropetrovsk, Yekaterinoslav, in the 1920s, in the tough pay years, when the Rebbe was a bacher still. And the Frierdiker Rebbe gave him a letter asking Levi Yitzchak to help him, which he did, and he also hosted him. He stayed in his house, and he would call Gvidim to the bank, and he would tell them how much to give, and he was a tremendous help for this Shlichus of Rabbi Simcha. And at nights, they would sit on the porch, the host and the guest, Rabbi Simcha, and Rabbi Levi Yitzchak would expound and say droshes and chidushim, and they speak, at great length. And his son, the Rebbe, would sit and just listen very carefully, didn't interfere at all. And one night, he was talking at very, very great length. And Reb Simcha Gorodetsky was just wondering, how late is it? But he didn't have a watch. So he asked Rabbi Levi Yitzchak, by the way, do you know what time it is? So Rabbi Levi Yitzchak told his son, the Rebbe, can you tell him what time it is? And the Rebbe stood up, looked at the sky, gazed there for a short while, and he said, it's 2:10. And Reb Simcha was wondering whether this is really any how accurate this could be. But it would not be polite to go check out on the clock right away. So he waited 10 minutes. Then he said, I have to be excused. And he went out in order to look at the clock. And he saw it said 2:20. In other words, when the Rebbe said 10 after 2, it was spot on. And then he came back to the porch, and Rabbi Levi Yitzchak laughed, and he said, now you believe me that he knows how to work it out.